In life, there's a principle known as cause and effect. When someone punishes you, the natural response is often to retaliate, especially if you have the means to do so. This concept applies not just to individuals, but to entire countries as well. Take the current situation with the United States, for instance. While the US has been able to bully its neighbors, the 10% tax on China is now backfiring in a major way. This is no longer the China of the 1990s or even 2010. Today, China is the world's largest manufacturing and industrial powerhouse. In many ways, China is outpacing the US on the economic front, which makes Trump's four-dimensional chess look like a major blunder. Beijing recently announced that it will impose a 10% tariff on cars imported from the United States. This will hit American automakers like GM, Ford, and Mercedes hard. The total import tax on heavy-engine vehicles from the US will rise to 25%. This is a significant move. In fact, an extra 10% tax could effectively feel like a ban on US cars in China. Manufacturing costs in the US are much higher than in China. Production costs in the US are steep. Supply networks are expensive. Electricity is pricier. And Chinese manufacturers have perfected automation technologies. As a result, Chinese-made cars, especially electric vehicles, can be world-class while remaining significantly cheaper than their Western counterparts. Trump's tariffs are putting the future of US automaking at risk. By imposing these taxes, he's limiting the income automakers rely on and straining the industry. Remember, Trump told US auto workers during his campaign that without his leadership, the US auto industry would vanish in 2 to 3 years. He even said China would take over with electric vehicles and the materials they have that the US lacks. The US might have abundant gasoline, but China doesn't need it in the same way. They're focused on electric vehicles. Trump's stance on this is looking increasingly short-sighted, and it's clear that a fundamental misunderstanding of the global shift in car production is at play. Currently, US workers face a major dilemma. If exports to China decline, it will hurt business profits, triggering a domino effect that could ultimately cost jobs in the US auto industry. This is not a complicated issue to solve. In 2024, US automakers like Ford and General Motors exported over $3 billion worth of vehicles to China, which is now increasingly closed off to American-made cars. The Chinese automobile market, the largest in the world, saw more than 22 million vehicles sold last year. It's a market that no other country can match, and consumers have plenty of alternatives to choose from, including global brands with production facilities in China, as well as local Chinese manufacturers like BYD and NIO, which are stealing market share from US brands. If US cars are excluded from China's market, consumers won't even notice. The real pain will be felt by automakers like Ford. The company is expected to see its earnings fall by at least $2 billion in 2025, with its stock price dropping 19% last year. Ford already faces quality issues, and now China's new tariffs on US cars will squeeze profit margins further, leading to reduced exports or even financial losses. Beijing is pressuring US businesses, but the impact won't necessarily hit China's local economy as hard. Instead, it will likely damage US manufacturing. While the US has been distracted with global conflicts, China has quietly built up its industrial capacity and secured its economy against tariffs. Today, Chinese automakers account for 32% of global vehicle production, while the US contributes just 11%. The reality is, no country can afford to cut China out of the equation for cheap vehicle production. To make affordable cars, you need access to Chinese manufacturing. In the end, Trump's policies have opened the door for China to become even more dominant in global auto manufacturing. The tariffs on US liquefied natural gas and coal were just the beginning. China's moves on essential minerals and now this new vehicle tax show that they are strategically retaliating, and it's clear that this is far from over. Let's take a moment to review recent developments. 2 days ago, Donald Trump imposed a 25% global steel tariff on all exporters worldwide. This affects countries like Japan, Canada, and Germany, which sell steel to the United States. However, the key question remains: who really pays for these tariffs? The burden ultimately falls on the customer, or more precisely the importer, meaning us. This means cars in the US are about to get significantly more expensive, adding hundreds of dollars to the cost of each vehicle. Here's why. Steel imports into the US exceed $23 billion annually. With the new tariffs, US importers will pay 25% more for steel. They might consider sourcing from domestic suppliers, but this would also lead to a price hike, potentially 25% or more. A typical car requires almost a ton of steel and a substantial amount of aluminum, regardless of whether it's gasoline-powered or electric. China has waited for Trump to make a mistake before striking back, and now they've targeted the US car industry. Will American automakers disappear? No, but they will be forced to focus only on the domestic market. Trump concentrated too heavily on generating revenue from tariffs. while neglecting to expand U.S. supply chains. The order of operations is simply wrong. Here's the fallout. All major Western countries have made the same error, and China has capitalized on it. In less than 4 years, China's car exports have skyrocketed from nearly last place to first, jumping from under 1 million vehicles per year to nearly 5 million. In contrast, the U.S. only exported about 900,000 cars last year. With the tariffs in place, U.S. car exports are expected to fall sharply. When Trump engaged in tariff talks with the EU, one of his key points was that Europeans weren't buying enough Fords and Chevys while U.S. roads were flooded with Mercedes and BMWs. The issue, however, is simple. U.S. cars aren't the most fuel-efficient or highest quality, and with the new tariffs, they'll become even more expensive. Even if the EU cuts tariffs on U.S. cars, they'll still be pricier than German-made ones. The real losers here will be U.S. consumers. In any trade war, it's the buyer who ends up paying the price. And as shocking as it is, car prices in the U.S. are about to rise. Now, I have nothing against American-made products. But is it really a win if we're paying more for the same thing? We are living through a situation where either Trump is playing a very complex game or has pulled a terrible trick on American consumers. A 25% steel tariff could raise the cost of a vehicle by $1,500, equivalent to a month's worth of savings for many U.S. households. On top of that, American manufacturers are likely to increase prices, and domestic steel may cost even more than the 25% increase. It's like buying a cup of coffee at a cafe. If the price of beans goes up by 50 cents, they'll still charge you $1 more. The costs don't stop at the car's sticker price. Inflation has already made car ownership more expensive. Used car prices are up 40%, maintenance and repairs are 30% higher, and car insurance has gone up by 29%. Replacing a gasket will cost you at least 20% more. The trade war is tightening household budgets, and in the end this will hurt U.S. manufacturers. As consumers feel the pinch, sales will decline. I wish I could say that's all the damage, but that wouldn't be the full picture. The escalation could continue in the weeks ahead. Trump is unpredictable, and we can't rule out further moves. What if he reimposes tariffs on Mexico and Canada? We know that Ford and General Motors produce a significant number of vehicles in both countries, and cars made there that return to the U.S. could face penalties. While more cars may be made domestically, prices will rise drastically. Think that can't happen? Remember, this is Trump we're talking about. Anything is possible. Campaigning may be exciting, but it's not necessarily good for the global economy, including the U.S. A 25% tariff on a $25,000 car could add over $6,000 to the price, and manufacturers will raise prices to match. This is not good for consumers and will ultimately result in lower revenues for U.S. automakers. How will they compete with China? Even as we speak, China's BYD is offering a free smart driving system and exploring AI for their vehicles. To do this, you need market share, stable finances, and low manufacturing costs, something Chinese automakers have been able to achieve. This trend will only further impact Western automakers. Trump's trade war is a classic case of focusing too much on the immediate tariff issue while ignoring the broader, more damaging consequences. The real harm comes from second and third order effects, many of which we can't predict yet. So buckle up, because this ride isn't over. What do you think? How big will China's retaliation be against U.S. automakers? Will this push Trump to reconsider his trade strategy? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe as we navigate these turbulent times. Stay safe!